Stop, do not scroll. If this video found you, it is not random, and I need you to understand that before you do anything else. Because what you are about to hear is not entertainment. This is not motivation. This is not just another spiritual concept you forget in 5 minutes. This is a signal, a direct interruption in your timeline. There is a reason you feel like something is shifting, like something is trying to get your attention but you can't fully explain it. A pressure in your chest, a quiet knowing that time is moving faster than it should. That something important is about to happen, but you don't know what. And here's the truth most people will never hear. Moments like this don't repeat. You are standing at a threshold right now. Not metaphorically, literally. Your mind, your energy field, your decisions, they are all aligning at a point where one choice will split your future into two completely different realities. One where you continue as you are, doubting, waiting, hesitating. And another, where everything begins to open. But here's the part that should shake you. The window for that shift is not permanent. There are moments in life where your awareness is elevated just enough to receive something powerful, and if you ignore it, it closes, quietly, permanently. And according to what we're about to reveal, you've already been marked. Not physically, not visibly, energetically. Your emerald field has already been activated. Which means this isn't about if something will happen. It's about whether you will respond before the opportunity disappears. So don't skip, don't pause, don't tell yourself you'll come back later. Because later may not exist for this version of you. Subskuramshla Iki Suomon Before we go deeper, take 2 seconds right now. Hit subscribe, like this video, and drop a comment below. And I want you to write something specific. Tell me, what part of the United States are you watching from? City or state, doesn't matter. Because what you're about to learn is reaching people at very specific locations and times for a reason. Teach momentiu wa thidachzi merel tiltion. There is a concept that most people are never taught. Not in school, not in religion, not even in most spiritual communities. And that is this: your reality does not begin outside of you. It begins in a field that surrounds your body, a field that responds to your thoughts, a field that records your emotional patterns and projects them into the physical world. This is not philosophy. This is quantum behavior. At the smallest level of existence, everything operates as energy before it becomes matter. Your thoughts are not just internal dialogue. They are electrical signals. Your emotions are not just feelings. They are magnetic frequencies. And when those two combine, they create a measurable field around you. This is what ancient traditions symbolically referred to as the aura. But what you are experiencing right now goes deeper than that. The emerald field is not just your energy, it is your activation state. It represents a specific alignment where your heart, your awareness, and your intention begin to synchronize. And here is where it becomes critical. This synchronization does not happen randomly. It happens when you reach a threshold, a point where your past identity can no longer sustain your future potential. That uncomfortable feeling you've had recently, the restlessness, the questioning, the sense that something in your life no longer fits, that is not confusion. That is compression. Your current identity is being compressed by the version of you that is trying to emerge. And when that pressure reaches a certain level, the field activates. But activation is not completion. Activation is invitation. At this stage, your mind becomes more sensitive. You start noticing patterns. You feel drawn to certain ideas, certain messages, certain moments, like this one. But here is the danger: most people misinterpret this phase. They think awareness alone is enough. It's not. Awareness without action collapses back into the old pattern. This is where quantum manifestation begins to separate people. Because manifestation is not about wishing. It is about alignment. And alignment requires 3 things: clarity, emotional coherence, and decisive movement. Without clarity, your energy is scattered. Without emotional coherence, your signal is unstable. Without movement, your field remains theoretical. The emerald field amplifies whatever state you are in. If you are clear, it accelerates results. If you are uncertain, it amplifies confusion. This is why some people experience breakthroughs and others experience chaos at the exact same stage. The field is not choosing for you. It is responding to you. And this is the part most people avoid: responsibility. Because once you understand that your reality is responding to your internal state, you can no longer blame external circumstances as the primary cause. You become the source. Now, this does not mean everything is under conscious control. But it does mean that your patterns, your repeated emotional responses, your beliefs, your expectations are shaping the probabilities around you. Think of your life not as a fixed path but as a range of possible outcomes. At any moment, there are multiple versions of your future that could unfold. Your field determines which one becomes dominant. And when the emerald activation occurs, the range expands. More possibilities open. But so does the risk. Because with more possibilities comes more responsibility to choose. And most people hesitate here. They feel the shift, but they delay the decision. They wait for confirmation, they look for guarantees. But quantum reality does not respond to certainty. It responds to commitment. The moment you fully commit to a direction, internally and emotionally, your field reorganizes around that decision. Opportunities begin to align. People enter your life. Situations shift, not because of luck, but because your frequency has changed. However, if you remain undecided, the field collapses back into familiar patterns. Not because it wants to, but because you did not stabilize the new state. This is why timing matters. And this is why this moment matters. Because you are not at the beginning. You are in the middle of activation. The question is not whether something is happening. The question is whether you will stabilize it or lose it. Kachwais wheel lopruchas teach kodidasigwanin dowu. There is a misconception that holds most people back from transformation. The belief that opportunities will always come back. That if you miss something now, you can catch it later. That there will always be another moment. But in the quantum world, observation changes reality. Timing changes probability. And windows of alignment are temporary. What you are experiencing right now is not just a phase, it is a convergence. A rare point where your awareness, your emotional state, and your external circumstances are aligned enough to create a shift. But alignment is unstable. It requires reinforcement. If not reinforced, it dissolves. Think of it like this: your current reality is held in place by repetition. The same thoughts, the same reactions, the same decisions. These create a stable pattern. When something new enters your awareness, like this message, it disrupts that pattern. For a brief moment, the system becomes flexible. This is the opening. But flexibility does not last forever. If you do not act, the system returns to its default state. And here's the truth that most people ignore: every time you ignore an opportunity to shift, it becomes harder to shift the next time. Not impossible, because your brain reinforces the idea that change is unnecessary. Your energy returns to familiar frequencies, and your field narrows again. This is why people feel like they almost changed their life multiple times. They reached the edge but didn't cross. And eventually they stop reaching. What makes this moment different is intensity. You didn't find this casually. Something in you is resonating strongly. That resonance is not accidental. It is a signal that your field is already engaged. But engagement without execution is wasted potential. And here's where we go deeper into manifestation. Manifestation is not about attracting what you want. It is about becoming the version of yourself that exists in the reality you want. That version of you thinks differently, feels differently, acts differently, and most importantly, decides differently. Right now you are being asked to make a decision at the identity level. Not a small decision, not a surface level change. A fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your future. Because the emerald field does not respond to surface intentions. It responds to identity shifts. If you still see yourself as uncertain, your results will reflect uncertainty. If you still identify with limitation, your opportunities will mirror that limitation. But the moment you change your internal identity, even before external proof appears, your field begins to reorganize. This is the leap most people avoid. They want evidence first, but evidence comes after alignment, not before. And this is why this will not repeat in the same way. Because the current version of you, the one who is aware, open, and on the edge of decision, will not exist forever. You will either evolve into a new identity, or revert back into the old one. And once you revert, the same level of awareness is harder to access. That urgency you feel right now, that clarity, that sense that something matters, that is not permanent. It is a peak state. And peak states are meant to be used, not observed. So the real question is this: what will you do with this moment? Will you treat it like content, or will you treat it like a turning point? Because the difference between those two choices is the difference between repeating your past or stepping into a completely different future. There is a moment in every transformation that feels almost invisible. No dramatic sign, no external confirmation, no voice telling you, this is it. And yet, everything depends on that moment. Because in the quantum sense, reality does not change when circumstances shift. Reality changes the moment a decision becomes irreversible inside you. Most people misunderstand what a decision really is. They think a decision is saying, I want something. But wanting is not deciding. Wanting still leaves space for doubt, still leaves room for retreat. A real decision is different. A real decision closes doors. It removes alternatives. It creates a level of internal certainty where going back is no longer an option. Not because you physically can't, but because you mentally won't. And this is where reality begins to collapse into a new form. At the quantum level, before something becomes physical, it exists as a probability, a range of possible outcomes. Your life right now is not one fixed path. It is a cloud of possibilities, different versions of you living different outcomes, all existing as potential. But only one becomes real, and the mechanism that selects that reality is not chance. It is not luck. It is not even effort alone. It is decision. The moment you make a true, irreversible decision, the field collapses, the probabilities narrow, and one reality begins to solidify. This is what most people feel when they say, everything changed after that moment. But here's what they don't realize. It wasn't the external event that changed everything. It was the internal decision that made the external event inevitable. Right now, you are standing before that kind of decision, not a surface-level choice, a defining one, the kind that determines which version of you becomes real. And this is why the pressure feels so intense, because your system recognizes what's at stake. Even if your conscious mind doesn't fully understand it, you may feel hesitation, you may feel fear, you may feel the urge to delay, to wait, to gather more information, but that is not intuition, that is resistance. Resistance is what happens when your current identity tries to protect itself from being replaced. Because understand this clearly, if you move forward, the version of you that exists right now cannot come with you, and that is uncomfortable. Familiar patterns will try to pull you back. Old beliefs will try to justify staying the same. Your mind will create logical reasons to delay action. But beneath all of that, there is something else. A quieter signal, a knowing. It doesn't argue, it doesn't panic, it simply tells you, this is the moment. That signal is alignment, and alignment does not come often. It comes when your awareness, your readiness, and your opportunity intersect at the same point. That is what is happening right now. But alignment alone is not enough, because alignment creates the opening, decision creates the shift. Now here is where the concept of the emerald field becomes critical again. When your field is activated, it amplifies commitment, not intention, commitment. And commitment is measurable in one-way action that matches identity. Not action that depends on motivation, not action that waits for the right mood, but action that happens because you have already decided who you are. This is the difference between people who manifest temporary changes and those who create permanent transformation. Temporary change comes from emotion. Permanent change comes from identity. If you act only when you feel inspired, your results will fluctuate. If you act from identity, your results stabilize. So the real question is not, what do you want to manifest? The real question is, who have you decided to become, regardless of what you see right now? Because the moment that identity becomes fixed, your behavior aligns, your focus sharpens, your energy stabilizes, and your field begins to produce consistent outcomes. This is where manifestation stops being random and becomes predictable. Now, there is something else you need to understand, something most people never hear. Once a true decision is made, the environment will test it, not to stop you, but to confirm you. Challenges will appear, doubts may increase, situations may temporarily seem worse instead of better, and this is where most people get confused. They think something is going wrong, but in reality, something is being verified. Your system is asking one question: is this identity real or is it temporary? And your response determines everything. If you react based on your old patterns, the system concludes the change was not stable, and your reality reverts. But if you hold your new identity, even when there is no evidence yet, the system locks it in, and from that point, your external world has no choice but to reorganize. This is the phase where most people quit, not because they lack potential, but because they misinterpret resistance as failure. But resistance is not failure. Resistance is the final barrier between intention and embodiment, and very few people cross it, because crossing it requires something rare: acting without immediate proof, holding certainty without external validation, continuing forward when nothing around you confirms your direction yet. But this is exactly what separates timelines: the version of you who waits for proof, and the version of you who becomes proof. One stays in repetition, the other creates transformation. And this is where the phrase, "this will not repeat," becomes fully real. Because this exact configuration, this level of awareness, this specific emotional intensity, this precise moment of alignment, will not exist again in the same way. You may have other opportunities, but they will not feel like this. They will not carry the same weight, because this moment is tailored to who you are right now. And who you are right now is temporary. You are either about to evolve or revert. There is no neutral, no pause, no standing still. Even doing nothing is a decision, and doing nothing has consequences, because when you delay a decision at this level, you are not staying where you are. You are moving backward into familiar patterns, into predictable outcomes, into a version of your life that you already understand. That is the real cost of hesitation. Not failure, but repetition. So now everything comes down to one thing: not what you believe, not what you understand, but what you decide. Right here, right now. Are you going to treat this as information or as activation? Because if you truly understand what has been revealed to you, then there is only one logical response. You move, not later, not when it's convenient. Now, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, because movement signals commitment, and commitment stabilizes identity, and identity determines reality. This is the point of no return. Not because you are forced forward, but because once you truly see what's possible, going back becomes impossible to ignore. You will always know. You will always feel it. The difference is whether you act on it, or spend the rest of your life remembering the moment you almost did.